Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Amparo and I'm a young adult and middle grade author. For today's video, I'll be talking about how I format my comic scripts. I've published a short story comic in this anthology, which won an Eisner. And I have a middle grade graphic novel coming out next year. I also have other projects that haven't been announced yet. Why does publishing take forever? But I'm super excited to share them soon. Full disclosure, I cannot draw to save my life, so if you're looking for an illustrator's perspective on writing scripts, check out the description box below with some of my favorite resources. Also, I can upload other videos later with actual writing tips, such as act breaks, outlines, story spines, etc. If you'd like to see those, let me know in the comments. First things first. Why do we need to talk about script format? Not all comic writers abide by the same rules, and one script might look drastically different from another. If the illustrator is also the writer, their scripting style varies too. This video will give you an inside look at how I work, but it is by no means the only way to work. That being said, we need to talk about format because it's the blueprint for how the final product will actually turn out. Each page in a graphic novel has a specific structure, a specific purpose, and scripts guide both the author and artist to creating their most cohesive story. Let's kick things off with software. I use Microsoft Word for my scripts. Other writers use Scrivener or Final Draft, then save them as either PDFs or Word documents. If you're just writing for yourself, feel free to use whichever software fits best with your style. If you're working for an imprint or a comics publisher, they'll have their preferences in order to make the editing process more accessible, so be cognizant of that as you move forward with your project. Okay, so now that we have a blank page, what happens next? You need to include the page number. I write mine in all caps and bold. You don't have to write in bold or all caps, so go with the style you enjoy. Some writers prefer to center the page number, and they'll keep it without the underline. Others will center and italicize. Whatever works for you is what works best. Great, we have our page number. Time to decide how many panels this page will have. Panels are those boxes or divided sections you see on a page. Think of them like the individual images, also known as shots, with a specific scene. Structuring your panels is crucial because you need to think about what will move the story forward in the least amount of space. You can also forego panels for what is known as the full page shot or splash page, which is an entire page featuring only one scene. Here are some examples. I prefer to use my full page shots sparingly since they tend to have the biggest impact on a reader and will usually contain plot twists or cliffhangers. You might be wondering how many panels we should have on a single page. The answer is simple, as many as you need. The key word here is need, folks. This is where story structure comes in handy. Maybe you want super cool action stuff happening on every panel, but does it drive the story forward? Are you revealing character or creating tension? Is it there just because it looks awesome? Then you probably need less panels. Okay, but what if it's a fight sequence? Shouldn't I show every little detail? You could. But always remember impact. If a reader sees the same thing too many times in a row, they'll either get overwhelmed or bored, especially when you factor in the art. Once you've decided how many panels your page will require, go ahead and write each one like this. Include the word panel along with the corresponding number. That way, the illustrator will know how to work with your story in terms of spacing. Sometimes an illustrator, or even you, will realize there are way too many panels. Maybe 2 or 3 panels can be combined into one. Just remember, your drafts are ever changing, so don't think whatever you write in that first draft, second draft, or even third draft will actually be printed. Next, write down what's happening in each individual panel. Your descriptions can be as simple as one sentence, or it can contain multiple sentences. This is your way of telling an illustrator what to draw, and sometimes writers choose to be super specific with lots of descriptions/exposition. Try different styles and see what works best for you. In my case, here's how I developed panels for the short story comic, What Remains in the Dark. Not too long, but specific enough so that the illustrator knew what I was aiming for. Also, I often leave panel descriptions for last. I prefer to know what's being said in the scene first, and it informs how I conceptualize it from a space/action perspective. Speaking of what's being said, how do I write dialogue? My style includes putting the character's name in all caps, adding the colon, then writing whatever it is they're saying in the scene. If a character has a lot to say, you can choose to break it up into different bubbles or speech bubbles, but they're actually commonly known as word balloons, just FYI. Or you can keep it all in one big bubble, but remember not to crowd the panel. Your text might end up looking very small in order to fit everything, especially if you have more than 4 panels on that specific page. The same applies to panels with different characters and conversation. Remember that magic word, impact. Make sure you're showing readers dialogue that absolutely needs to be shown. Additional information can be shared via character actions/choices. Along with dialogue, you can add special effects for actions such as creaking doors, shattering glass, exploding objects, and even gasps. This helps readers know an action is important. Whether it's conveying dismay, delight, or cranking up the tension, readers will identify that sound as an integral part of your panel. I include effects by adding the tag SFX, putting a colon next to it, then adding the onomatopoeia, or the sound in written form, in all caps. I finish it off with an exclamation mark, but it's not mandatory. Now let's talk about captions. A caption provides additional information such as location, date, time, or third-person narration. Illustrators often play with the caption's placement, shape, and size, but it's always included to let readers know something without interrupting your storytelling's flow. To include a caption, I write the tag like so. Add the colon, and insert whatever the caption will say. Brevity is key with captions, unless you're only going to include it in a panel without dialogue. You can use captions in every panel on the page, but remember to play with style and length so that it doesn't get repetitive or overwhelming. Here's the finished first draft of my short story comic's first page. There's no dialogue, but I did add captions with my main character's narration/inner monologue. I tried to convey her sadness at losing her old way of life and her uncertainty in this new normal. Here's what that first page actually looks like in its final form. These are all the panels as they appear in the anthology's print copy. The illustrator for this piece is the incredible Eliana Falcon-Dvorsky. Website and webcomic links in the description box so you can check out more of their work. This wasn't the first script I wrote, but since I only needed to submit 3 to 4 pages, it was definitely the fastest script I've ever written. So that's how I approach script format for comics and graphic novels. Each story has its own demands and stylistic choices to consider. So this is what the overall process looks like for me. If this video was helpful in any way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what other topics I should cover next. Thank you so much for watching. Stay awesome. Bye!